Hello students, I'm Dr. Himanshu Kandpal, Assistant Professor English, Government MS College for Women, Bikaner. Today I'm going to discuss trends in modern English poetry. Modernism was a literary movement broadly covering the period of the last decade of the 19th century to the beginning of Second World War. So, it is perhaps best understood as an era of radical cultural upheaval which flourished predominantly in Europe and the USA from arguably around the last quarter of the 19th century. It is in fact a broad term canvassing numerous ideological groups, literary movements, and varied schools of literature, art, and thought coexisting in Europe almost at the same time. So, it is a term for the remarkable variety of contending groups, movements, and schools in literature, art, and music that flourished in Europe in particular during this period. These include symbolism, impressionism, post-impressionism, aestheticism, decadence, expressionism, imagism, futurism, Dadaism, and Surrealism. So, collectively, these movements represent modernist culture's uncompromising confrontation with an sense of severance from the conventions and tastes of both mass society and governing elite, and its determination to rebuild and renew the arts. The period is thus characterized by the issuing of manifestos and the rapid dissemination of experimental works and ideas. And I would like to tell you something about the age also, something about this age also, that it was also a time in which mass modernity and its cutting edge technologies such as telephony, electricity, and aviation were seen seen by some modernists the new and the more heroic world they longed for. In addition, modernists took a keen interest in the parallel revolutions that were taking place in physics, psychology, anthropology, and so on, and wrote about the modern city with either contempt or awe. So, the poetry of this period is traditional in form and subject matter. Prior to the First World War, the Georgian poets like Rupert Brooke, Edward Marsh, Robert Grave, and John Drinkwater occupied the central stage in English literature. However, a little later, the soldier poets emerged whose poetry depicted the horrors of war and resulting disillusionment. Disillusion means a feeling of disappointment. It is quite remarkable and noteworthy that the three strongest pillars or the most representative poets of this age were all outsiders. William Butler Yeats was an Irish, whereas T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound were both Americans. So, modernist poetry followed a similarly iconoclastic agenda, overthrowing conventional forms and moving towards fragmentation, free verse, complex allusion, and patterning, and personal discourse, often purposely obscure. So, these effects are most evident in the poetry of T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound, who, with William Butler Yeats, were the most important figure in British modernist poetry. The chief characteristics of the poetry of this age are the following. The range of diction extended enormously. Slang words. Slang words mean a type of language consisting of words and phrases that are regarded as informal. Colloquialism, a word used in ordinary conversation, and jargons were welcome additions to the diction. Jargons means special words and phrases that are used by particular groups of people that are difficult for others to understand. For welcome additions to the diction, there was a revolutionary extension in the subject matter. Unconventional and uncommon themes were chosen. In fact, no theme remained unnoticed and untouched by the modern poets. Trams, trains, locomotives, and airplanes also become themes of poetry. Nature, patriotism, and love of homeland were also added to the stock of already existing themes. This poetry reflects the mood of pessimism and disillusionment, which were the hallmarks of the age. Here I would like to quote a writer. According to A.C. Ward, when the 20th century opened, Tennyson had been dead 9 years, and there was a widespread impression that English poetry had died with him. He further added, the poetry of this period shows distinct decline, not in the general level of execution, but in genius and breadth of range. The great emotion, especially in the emotion of romantic love, are avoided by most poets. They see the world as children see it and are content with the mere external appearances of things. They seldom seek to interpret, and they aim at communicating in the most simple language possible. They delight in sheer physical beauty or their discovery that is conventionally regarded as commonplace or ugly has a real beauty of its own. The poets apparently have no theory of the universe to offer us, no great deal to set before us. In the face of modern industrialism, they solace their souls by retiring in the country and celebrating the beauties of unspoiled nature. Those who attempt work on the large scale generally fail to sustain a high level of imagination and expression. Their work tends to become rhetoric. So, T.S. Eliot is the representative poet of this age, and his masterpiece, The Wasteland, encapsulates means express essential features of the spirit of the age to the fullest. It depicts the disillusionment. Disillusionment means a feeling of disappointment. Ambiguity, it means doubtfulness, despair, dejection, and fragmentation of the age. At the same time, the optimistic ending echoes the hope of the denizens of this age. The other prominent modern poets of this age include Cecil D. Lewis, W. H. Auden, and Stephen Spender. So, new voices were beginning to be heard and new movements to stir below the placid surface of Victorian life. Thank you. This is